Okay, so I'm reading the Violin Boy A Karlna story, or Sap Karl, on Wattpad. It's by questionable underscore AOI, I think. And here's some disclaimers. So there's swearing and slight homophobia included in this story, just so you guys know. It is their first story in this fanfic. Sapnap is 6'2" and Karl is 6 foot. There are 2 characters added. Mai, which is a female, age 16, height 5'7", or 173 centimeters. Occupation, royal advisor, informer, babysitter. And Noah, male, age 3. Chapter 1. Dead Flower Crowns. Also, just so you guys know, sorry, I have speech delay, so if I can't pronounce something correct, don't come at me. But Chapter 1. Dead Flower Crowns. Karl was a prince of a kingdom named Kinoko. He used to have a happy life when he was 5 years old. He would play with his 2 older siblings, Corey and Sean, and his mother since his father was busy with paperwork, the kingdom, and the wars they had with the kingdom called Dream SMP. He would rarely step out of his office, unless it was for a meal or meeting. Karl would ask his father to spend time with him. His mother, of course, since his father was busy with paperwork, the kingdom, and the wars they had with the SMP, would have to spend time with him. Sorry. That was like a weird thing. That was a mishap on the author. No, I'm not going after the author, I'm sorry. Anyways, back to the story. He would rarely step out of his office, unless it was for a meal or a meeting. Karl would ask his father to spend time with him. It'll always be like this. I'm sorry, bud. I have to finish this paperwork. Go ask Mommy. That was the same answer every time Karl would ask him. But Daddy, I miss you. Karl, please, I have work to do. I miss you. Karl, out, now. But, no buts. Karl sighed and headed to the door. I love you, Dad, he muttered before leaving, closing the door behind him. Karl went outside to the garden where his siblings and mother were making flower crowns. I told you he won't agree, Corey said. I want to spend time with him. Is that too much to ask? Karl shouted at her. Oh, Karl. His mother went up to him and spread her arms out. Come here. Karl stepped closer and hugged his mother. She picked him up and went back to the tube and sat down on the grass. He's busy, Karl. You'll understand once you become a king. Karl nodded in response. He then felt something being put on his head. Your siblings and I were making flower crowns. Do you want to help us? The young prince looked up at his mother with excitement and nodded eagerly. His mother couldn't help but giggle at the reaction. Karl, his siblings, and his mother would spend time together baking, arts and crafts, paint, dance, tell each other stories, making flower crowns, learning music. Karl loved playing the guitar. He wasn't good at it at first, but after practicing, he adapted to his guitar and started making music, but never shared any of it. Karl is now 15. His father was still too focused on the kingdom. His siblings became distant. They stopped spending time with him and his mother and locked themselves in their rooms. His mother. Instead, something worse happened. The young prince and queen were outside in the backyard garden. They were making flower crowns. Alright, I'm almost. The queen was cut off by a sharp pain in her chest. She squeezed her chest and started yelping because of the pain. She was having a hard time breathing as well. It's been like that for 3 whole days now. Her energy started getting lower as well. Karl rushed to her mother. Mother, are you sure you're alright? Yes, honey, I'm... Then continued to come and cut her off. Fine, don't worry. Keep making your flower crown. Karl set his crown down. Mother, I think we should go see the doctor. I'm fine, Karl. Don't worry, his mother reassured him. Karl stood up and helped his mother get up as well. I'm taking you to the doctor either way. After taking his mother to the doctor had said that the queen had a deadly heart disease with no cure, and she didn't have much time left to live. Karl's heart shattered once he heard the news. He fell to his knees and started crying. The doctor knelt in front of him and hugged him. The queen was later bedridden in her room. She was getting weaker and sicker. Karl stayed by her side and cried. When people of the kingdom got news, they locked themselves in houses, swearing to never leave. They loved the queen so much, and they weren't ready for her to go. When Karl's siblings and father got the news, they quickly rushed to her room where the queen was kept, and when they saw the queen's state, they were all heartbroken as well, especially the king. He wasn't ready to see the love of his life die, and the kids weren't ready to lose their mother either. Karl was in his room on his balcony looking over his kingdom. A cold breeze brushed over his pale skin. He took a deep breath, making the cold air fill his lungs. I just want things to go back to the way they were, he said, sighing afterwards. It was so cold that the prince could see his breath. The prince heard his door open, startling him a little. He turned his head and saw his sister, crying. Karl turned his whole body around and started approaching her. Corey, what's wrong? What happened? Karl, it's about Mother. Corey continued to sob. She couldn't finish her sentence. What happened to... Karl froze when he realized what his sister was trying to tell him. The prince put his hands on each side of his head, repeating the word no. No, he shouted, before running out his door and heading to his parents' room. Karl, wait! His sister yelled, but Karl ignored her and kept running to their parents' room. The door to his parents' room was wide open. Cries could be heard from there. The prince held on to the door frame, catching his breath from running. He lifted his head and saw his mother laying on the bed, lifeless. Karl's father on the side of the bed holding his mother's hand while sobbing. Sean was also there on his knees, crying. Karl was frozen in utter disbelief, and then he fell to his knees, and the tears were now rolling down his face again. After After the death of the queen, the kingdom's happiness drained. The sky of the kingdom was slowly getting covered with gray and black clouds, prohibiting sunlight from entering the kingdom. The people still locked themselves in their houses, where they would cry and grieve all day. Because of that, all the plants in the kingdom slowly withered, because there was no sunlight and no one to take care of them. Everything was dead. The queen's death broke the king physically and mentally. He would lock himself and grieve for his deceased wife. The widower would visit his wife's grave, which was buried in the backyard garden, her favorite place. The king stopped eating and taking care of himself. He had huge bags under his eyes, and his eyes were bloodshot from crying. Karl's siblings would spend most of their time in the backyard garden. The two would sit beside their mother's grave and reminisce about all the great times they had. Both of them would make flower crowns out of the dead flowers and put them on the grave. Karl was broken after his mother's death. He stopped playing his music and he stopped playing his guitar and making music. He stopped smiling, laughing. He would just cry and have a stoic face all the time. He tried to cheer himself up, but nothing worked. He would visit his mother's grave and talk to her every once in a while. It's been 5 years since the Queen's death, and the wars with Dream SMP came to an end. Karl was now 20. His siblings got married and left to rule other kingdoms. Karl stayed in Kunoko with his father. The two would lock themselves in their rooms, where they would spend most of their time on their balconies, looking over what once was a happy kingdom. Karl wished everything would go back to normal. He missed the children laughing and playing around. He missed the life the people gave the kingdom. He missed his family. He missed the feeling of happiness. He just wanted things to go back to normal. The prince hoped that someone would come and save Kunoko from its misery. Unfortunately, that day never came. Okay, so now I am literally just going to be right back. Okay, so that was the first chapter of Violin Boy, a karlna or /sap Karl Royal AU story. I don't think I mentioned that it was a Royal AU, but it is. So I hope you guys liked it. There's going to be 22 chapters of this, so I'll try to see how many I can fit in. I'm only going to do short periods of this entire thing for as long as it takes me to do this. Hopefully I won't forget about this, and I really like this story so far. I won't read any more without you guys. I promise you that. Okay? In total, all of the episodes should roughly add up to 2 hours and 35 minutes, like how it says in the time thing there now. I don't know what just popped up at the bottom of my screen. Cancel. I don't know. If you have any questions, just ask. Hopefully I'll be posting on a regular basis, and this is just something that I'm trying out. I don't even know if I'll keep this up or not. So, I hope you enjoyed. Goodbye. Have a good day or night.